Hi everyone, it's Tara and I'm here to talk about the policy that I chose to make my video on this week, which is the No Zero policy. So we're going to talk about the No Zero policy. What is the No Zero grading policy? Basically, it's a policy that bans or discourages teachers from giving grades lower than 50% to students. It sets the lowest possible grade for any assignment or test to at least 50%, even when a student doesn't turn in any work at all. It's relatively new. It's really only been used within the last 15 years within schools and school districts. And it's rising in popularity across the United States. So let's look at some pros and cons on this policy. Pros of the No Zero policy. The first pro is that it gives students a chance to succeed. These changes in grading policy are moving in tandem with the national efforts to abolish letter grades and to minimize the value placed on AP exams and SAT scores in favor of assessments focused on students' skills, competencies, and work examples. It also gives students equity. Many educators argue that home life factors create barriers to student learning, that low grades encourage struggling students to give up, and that teachers who can't get their kids to comply use grades to punish rather than to assess knowledge. There are also a wide variety of home life factors like learning disabilities, learning English as a second language, or working a job to support families that impact students' abilities to succeed academically. If a student misses a major assignment or assessment due to a home life situation and receives a 0, that's much more difficult to come back from academically than a 50. And finally, it makes the grading system more fair. Instead of working harder, the vast majority of students who get an F tend to withdraw, try less, and come to school less because they're taking an F for what it actually stands for, failure. And that results in students giving up. With the No Zero policy giving the students a 50, it basically gives them more hope to try harder and gives them a chance to recover. Now let's talk about cons for the No Zero policy. One of the first cons is that it allows students to do minimal work. Some teachers from school districts who have the policy in place have reported that it had unintended consequences that undermined instruction. Many students learn to subvert the system and would do nothing 2 quarters of the year, collect their 50s, and do well during the next 2 quarters and on the final. In essence, they were smart kids who didn't want to do the work, and they knew they could take half the year off and still pass. It lets kids slip by without content mastery. So, according to some educators, a No Zero grading standard allows students who haven't mastered the content to slip by and then move on to increasingly harder subjects, the next grade level, or even to college completely unprepared, putting them in a hole they might never climb out of. And finally, it fails to teach students real-life consequences. According to Christina Arenas, a community college professor, high school students are often shocked when they get D's and don't move on or coast through. If your boss gives you a deadline and you miss it, what happens? Asked Arenas. At some point, our job as educators has to be to prepare students for the real world, which this policy does not do. Now let's talk about the impact the No Zero policy might have on teachers. The first is that it can make teachers feel empowered or that they have no control. Some teachers really like the No Zero policy. They feel it gives their students an even playing field, and it actually lets their students get graded on the content that they know. Others might feel like they have no control. They might see this policy as unjust and unfair. There are some teachers who, whether they agree with the policy or not, are actually finding to start their way back to the middle. Those teachers, when dealing with the No Zero policy, give a slightly higher grade to students who put in the effort. Teachers with more flexibility say they give their students slightly lower scores to students who don't try at all. Others put students' original scores on their papers but mark 50% in their grade book, so those students and their caregivers know the grade that reflects their actual understanding. Another impact that this policy might have is that it may affect a teacher's job position. In 2018, a Florida teacher made headlines when she claims that she was fired for not wanting to follow this policy. Diane Tirado claims that when she told her school no, that she was not going to do the no zero policy, that they fired her. She says that they gave her little time to say goodbye to her students and just let her write a goodbye message on her board. Although the school district later claims that her accusations were false, Tirado made headlines against this policy. So I want to thank you for watching my video on the No Zero policy, and I'd like to know where you stand on this topic. So in the discussion forum below, just comment what you think, whether you agree or disagree, and I look forward to reading your responses. Thank you.